Okay, let's jump right in. For a few years now, the uranium market has been all about forecasts, all about what might happen. But 2026, that's different. This is the year all that theory becomes a very physical reality. We are talking about a major scarcity squeeze, and believe me, it's coming on a lot faster than most people think. So what's really lighting the fire under this market? Well, the answer might surprise you. It actually starts somewhere you'd probably never guess: Silicon Valley. I mean, why on earth are companies like Amazon and Microsoft suddenly scrambling to get into the nuclear fuel game? It all comes down to one of the most powerful forces reshaping our world right now. And that leads us straight to the first massive force we need to talk about: AI's absolutely insatiable appetite for power. And I'm not talking about a little bump in usage. No, this is an unstoppable wave of new demand, and it's completely rewriting the entire energy rulebook. Let's break this down. AI data sensors are absolute energy hogs. They need a colossal amount of power, and they need it 24/7 with zero interruptions. That's what we call baseload power. Now look, wind and solar are fantastic, but they're not always on. So if you need carbon-free, totally reliable, around-the-clock power, well, for these tech giants, nuclear is quickly becoming the only real game in town. Now here's where it gets really interesting. This demand isn't just coming from one place, it's compounding. It's like four waves hitting at once. First, you've got those AI data centers we just talked about. Then you have this wild new thing called zombie reactors coming back online. On top of that, the very first small modular reactors, or SMRs, are finally firing up. And wrapping all of this together is a huge geopolitical earthquake: the ban on Russian fuel. Let's dig into that zombie reactor idea for a second, because it's a really big deal. We're literally talking about a nuclear plant that was fully shut down, decommissioned, being brought back from the dead. And this isn't just some theory, you know? Just look at the Palisades plant in Michigan. They're aiming to restart in early 2026. If they pull it off, it basically proves it's faster to resurrect an old plant than to build a new one, creating a brand new, immediate need for uranium. And what about that Russian ban? Well, this creates something folks in the industry are calling phantom demand. It's a bit tricky, but here's how it works. To make up for the enriched fuel we're no longer getting from Russia, Western facilities have to use more raw uranium to get the same result. How much more? About 10 to 20% more. So here's the key takeaway. Even if the number of reactors stays the same, the world suddenly needs a lot more raw uranium ore from the ground. Okay, so demand is just exploding from all these different angles. The obvious question is, can the supply side keep up? Well, that brings us to the other half of this story: a supply chain that is, frankly, faltering. It's really stumbling to respond to this massive global need. So let's compare what everyone thought was going to happen with what's actually happening. The market's big expectation for 2026 was a flood of new uranium production coming online to easily meet this rising demand. The reality? It's turning out to be the complete opposite. Major new mines are hitting delays, and even worse, the world's single biggest producer is actually cutting its output. And this right here, this is the number that sent a shockwave through the entire market. Kazatomprom, who is basically the Saudi Arabia of uranium, announced they were slashing their planned 2026 production by about 10%. Why? Get this: shortages of basic stuff like sulfuric acid and construction delays. When the biggest player on the field can't deliver, you know the whole system is under stress. So the first half of 2026 is going to be absolutely critical. You're going to want to keep your eyes on these dates. In January or February, we get the final word from Kazatomprom. Then, February 9th to the 13th, there's a huge licensing hearing for NextGen's massive new mine. On the 13th, we hear from Cameco. And then, sometime in that first half, the world's first commercial SMR, Linglong 1, is scheduled to go live. Each one of these is a potential market-moving bombshell. So, you see what's happening, right? You have this unstoppable demand on one side and this faltering supply on the other. This is it. This is the 2026 scarcity squeeze. It's the moment where these two powerful, opposing forces are set for head-on collision. And this graphic just perfectly lays out the entire story for you. Over on the left, you see all the forces pushing demand higher: AI data centers, those zombie reactors coming back, and the phantom demand from the Russian ban. Then on the right, you see the supply side stumbling. The world's biggest producer is faltering, and those critical new mines are still stuck waiting for a green light. And right there in the middle, you have the uranium market, just getting squeezed from both sides. That, right there, is the picture for 2026. One industry analyst put it perfectly. They said, 2026 is the year the buffer disappears. You see, for years, the market had this extra inventory, this secondary supply to handle any shortfalls. But now, with Kazatomprom's cuts and the Russian ban really starting to bite, all that slack is just gone. The market is now walking a very, very tight rope. So, with everything going on, you're probably wondering, how can you track this yourself? Well, we put together a simple market dashboard for you with 3 key indicators you absolutely need to be watching as this whole thing plays out. Okay, first things first, forget about the day-to-day spot price. That's mostly noise. The number to watch is the long-term contract price. This is what the big utility companies actually pay to secure their fuel for years down the road. If you see that price stay consistently above $95 a pound, that's a massive signal. It's telling you the big buyers are getting genuinely desperate to lock in their future supply, almost regardless of the cost. Indicator number 2 is all about watching what the big miners themselves are doing, and specifically Canada's Cameco. So you're going to want to listen really closely to their earnings calls. If they announce that they're going out and buying more than 5 million pounds of uranium on the open market, that's the tell. That's the signal. It means their own mines can't keep up with the contracts they've already signed, and that's a crystal clear sign of stress across the entire system. And finally, indicator number 3, keep a close eye on the small modular reactor order book. Look, we're past the phase of just hype and press releases. What we're looking for now are concrete, firm orders. The moment we see more than 5 of these solid orders placed globally, that's when you'll know. That's the moment SMRs officially move from being a cool PowerPoint idea to a real market force, locking in a whole new generation of future uranium demand. So let's just do a quick fire recap of this collision course for 2026. On one side, you have AI and zombie reactors driving brand new, unexpected demand. On the other, the world's biggest producer is actively pulling supply off the table. Meanwhile, geopolitics is creating phantom demand thanks to the Russian fuel ban. And the most important part? The market's safety net, that buffer of extra inventory, it's just not there anymore. Which really leaves us with this one final crucial thought. In 2026, all those theoretical supply deficits that people have been talking about for years, they're finally about to become a very real, very physical problem. So the question we should be asking ourselves isn't if there's going to be a shortage. It's just how severe is the market's reaction going to be when everyone realizes the shelves are suddenly bare.